YouTube, how's it going? The Goat House is back after a super wild card round weekend. And they don't call it the wild card round for nothing. Some wild outcomes, unpredictable outcomes here. And that's, I guess, what makes it so entertaining. I'm here to break it down, give you my takeaways for each of the 6 games here and from Super Wildcard Weekend. Going to give you my takeaways on the teams that won, what to look out for, and their potential playoff run, and then the teams that lost, why they lost, what they need to work on, what to look for, in the offseason, I suppose. Really quick, I got a big time question for you guys. You can't really see it here yet, but on the side of the app, I'll pin a link directly to this in the comments, so that's the easiest way to find it. Which NFL team made the biggest statement in the wildcard round? You guys vote, and then you guys comment with your vote. If you get likes, you earn points, and you win. You can win Amazon gift cards. Even 10th place wins an Amazon gift card, so it's pretty cool. But yeah, this is, I don't mean who just based on one game, but kind of who made that statement where, okay, this team might be able to make some kind of noise. They might be able to do something. They're legit, so that I think is an interesting question here, interesting debate. We'll see what you guys say because, maybe the Browns or the Saints dominated the most, but maybe it's a different team that, okay, yeah, the stock is kind of up in my mind in this team to make a run. So that's kind of what I want to know from you guys. But yeah, back to, follow that Twitter. We were talking during all these live games on that Twitter. There's a link down below, description, comments for that. We have polls on there. We'll have it for player of the wildcard weekend. You guys will vote, keeping you guys involved in videos. And please subscribe. Full NFL coverage. We're already getting started on off-season coverage at the same time of playoff coverage, so check that out. Any link that you need will be down in the description and comments, and again, go vote for that. I'll put a link there. First game was Colts and Bills. Pretty entertaining. I mean, every game was pretty entertaining, but this was a pretty entertaining game. 27-24 Bills won the game, obviously, and it's pretty wild that the Colts kind of maybe outgained the Bills, for the most part in this game, especially in the first half. So that was pretty interesting. The Colts just kind of just let themselves down. They were executing for the most part until they got in the red zone, and they were no longer executing. And I'll tell you exactly what happened in this game, exactly why they couldn't pull it off. It's because the Bills had, maybe it's not the Bills, but take a look at a team like the Bills, having Josh Allen, having Stephon Diggs, these big-time playmakers, guys that can take over, guys that can have explosive play and change the game on one play. Colts really don't have that, and that's the difference. They need more talent there, and they're in a good situation for the offseason. In my opinion, they're in a great situation, in my opinion. So I'm really looking forward to the Colts moving forward, and that is because the cap space that they have, and they can continue to build through the draft. They got a lot of young pieces that are solid, and the fact that they were this good, they put up a fight with the Bills. They could have won this game, at times, and for the most part, it kind of felt like they outplayed the Bills. They lost the game, but it's really a good sign moving forward because they just didn't have the talent of the Bills, on the offensive side, which is more important because they didn't have the players that really could execute when it came down to it. Rivers played an okay game. He was getting better down the stretch of the season, and he was executing up until the red zone. Michael Pittman was probably their best weapon, in a playoff game against a Bills caliber team. It's good that their second-round rookie is showing promise. He's going to be really good. He's a key piece. That's fantastic news. But realistically, to be a Super Bowl team, that's really not ideal to have a second-round rookie there to be kind of your best playmaker. And Nyheim Hines probably was there too. I like Nyheim Hines a lot. He's very underrated. Probably should have got the ball a little more, but yeah, kind of the do-it-all guy. But they could add more, and that's the great thing. That is the great thing there because if they add the talent, that explosive takeover player, maybe they only need one. Maybe they just need one of that. Probably could, it's a great situation to be on, but you kind of need a quarterback of the future at the same time. That's really not an easy situation, but I still like the situation. In this game, Frank Reich probably had the best performance of the week in terms of the coaching staff, and that's why they outgained. That's why they outperformed maybe the Bills at times, even though they didn't have the explosive talent that the Bills had. Excellent game plan. He knew exactly what stood out specifically. He knew exactly what the Bills were going to do in the defense. He knew when they were going to be in man coverage. He created these basically these crossing route plays where it's just confusing. They get, forcing defenders to run into each other. I liked, there was a screen pass to Michael Pittman at one point. There was a couple, but there was one where it was just, I was calling for it at the time, his most perfect call in that situation. People got on him a little bit by, going for the 2-point conversion. They're at the 1 yard line on that. That I would have went for 2 there as well. You expect your guy to get 1 yard. Maybe the pitch to Jonathan Taylor towards the goal line. If it was on the goal line, I wouldn't have liked it, but it was a little off. I just wish it was Hines that got the ball. I thought he was kind of the better overall player in that game. It's kind of by game with those guys. I think Taylor relies on the holes being there, which for the most part they are. A little bit. Obviously, an explosive rookie, had a bright future. But Frank Reich, game plan-wise, I thought he called a ridiculous game. In the Colts offensive line, those two things basically had the Colts, in the position to win the game. Those two things, Frank Reich, the coaching staff, on defense as well, offensive line, the defensive playmakers. Defense is fantastic. I think they can use a corner. They probably can use another edge rusher, even though, a guy like Muhammad stepped up big time, but, I like that defense. I like that defense a lot. But those things, those players, those coaches, they put the team in position to win this game, without a doubt. They put them in position to win this game, even though they're not the better team, not the more explosive team, mainly because they don't have guys like Josh Allen, Stephon Diggs, mainly. Even the Bills might, even though the Colts defense is better, the Bills might have more of those playmaker types that can really change the game. But they were still in position to win the game because that's so. It's a good thing because if they add those players, it's going to be a dangerous, dangerous team. If they do this offseason right, they can be very, very scary next season. If there's a lot of change, I guess adding a new quarterback, maybe it'd be tough to do it in 1 year. But they are in a pretty good position. It's not going to be easy. They're in a pretty good position to turn it around because again, they could have won this game. And it was because I love the coaching staff. It was a phenomenal outing for the coaching staff. The Bills. Yeah, there's kind of good and bad for the Bills. The Bills got outgained for most of this game, outplayed for most of this game. Actually, they still won, though. It took them a little bit to get going. And it's kind of bad because you don't want to see that in the playoffs. You want to see consistency. But it's good because, it just shows that you're just the better team. You kind of started a little slow. You started a little sloppy, and you still won the game. You got on that. They kind of got on that roll. Was that third quarter going into the fourth quarter? Overall, it's a good thing, and it shows if they can, put together their A game, full game, they're dangerous. They're dangerous, So it's kind of the positive there. Josh Allen really stepped up early in the game. They had a big play that kind of sparked things to Diggs. It was a really good throw because it was kind of just like last second flick. The footing wasn't right for Josh Allen. And that's not, he just had to throw it. He had to get it going. So that was a good throw, really good catch for Diggs, full speed forward, and kind of had to jump almost up and forward to make the grab. That was tough. That sparked some things. Gabriel Davis sparked some things with some good catches. People were complaining about the sideline catches. Those were catches, in my opinion. So those were right calls. You could see like kind of freeze frame screenshots that you can. The one that was debated the most, you can definitely see it was a catch. It's a close call. So I agree it was definitely a catch. And the Colts, they just couldn't execute in the red zone. The players they were executing for the most part. And as soon as he got in the red zone, not too much. They had a fourth down where Rivers tried to go to Pittman. It's a beautiful play design. The design the whole way was to go to Pittman. They basically, and it was great. There was so many crossing routes. Legal pick plays, not illegal, and he was open. He kind of needed to get to that corner of the end zone so you can put a little blame on Rivers and Pittman. Rivers is kind of just throw and catch. You're just playing catch with your guy, just throw it to him. So mainly on Rivers, but Pittman did need to get out to that corner. He was kind of coming straight across where it could be defended. It was designed for him just to get that's a wide open spot, and the play was. The way the play was drawn up, it worked. They didn't execute all the way through. That just popped up so many times. Even on defense, they played well enough defensively. I thought, they struggled to, kind of tackle Josh Allen in the right moments, but they had a bad offside. Kamoko Toure had a bad offsides at one point. So, again, executing on offense to get you in the red zone, executing in defense for the most part, but these slight moments, these big, important moments, the players just did not execute. So you need to go and get players, and these are still good players, but you need to go get playmakers that will execute in the big moments. That's what the Colts need here. So the Bills finish it off. There was an interesting call at the end there. Pascal, I thought he fumbled. I thought he got back up, fumbled. It was close. I didn't think it was a good call, but this was a common trend throughout the weekend for every game. People really complaining about the refs. They weren't perfect, but there was too much complaining, like at every chance you can get. And this one was one to be like, wow, yeah, that you can think it's a bad call, but you sit down and really think, what was this, a phantom call? Is this rigged? Or I didn't see any of that this week at all. That call, remember the refs don't watch the replay in slow motion. That's one. And also his ankle actually could have been down. I don't think it was, but his ankle, kind of the side of his ankle was actually close to being down. So, you don't have to agree with the call. I don't agree with the call, but is there an explanation? Is there a reason why it's kind of tough for the refs? I think so. So that's what you have to kind of think to yourself. Everyone all week, it was getting ridiculous. I don't like the refs, the way they've been handling things. They didn't have a good year. They're getting slower as a group, it feels like. But, people were getting out of hand, and that kind of goes to every game this week. Just think about, it wasn't rigged. Just because it was an interesting call doesn't mean it's rigged in any way. So I thought that was pretty ridiculous. Bills end up holding on there. It would have sparked some crazy debates, some controversy if the Colts end up winning that game. They had a shot. Again, I like Colts' future. The reason they didn't win was because they couldn't execute. The players couldn't really execute. They need more of those big-time takeover playmakers on their team. So, yeah, we'll see what the Bills got. Bills still a dangerous team. This showed a little vulnerability, though, because the Colts kind of outgained them, Colts had an insane amount of yards. Usually you win with those type of yards. So I guess we found some, a little bit of weaknesses in the Bills. Still a very good team that can make a run. Next game, Rams-Seahawks. Bit of a surprise here that the Rams put up 30 points, I suppose. But kind of the unpredictable, the wild thing is the way you think about the quarterback situation for the Rams. Goff ended up being good to be active. But Wolford's still starting. That's kind of weird, unpredictable thing in the first place. So Wolford start really early on. Wolford got hurt. Weird play there with Jamal Adams. On that play, I wouldn't, I'm kind of old school. I like letting guys play. I wouldn't have thrown the flag in the first place, but I always kind of view picked up flags a little interesting, so that was kind of odd. They picked it up, but I wouldn't have thrown the flag in the first place. Adams kind of went at the same time he was going down, hit him with his shoulder. It's football. Come on. But yeah, kind of going back. So Wolford's out. Goff comes in. Just think about that. If explaining that, Goff, their starting quarterback who made it to a Super Bowl before, has his good moments, has bad moments, but overall, starting quarterback, their guy. Good to go, but he's not going to start. John Wolford's going to start. John Wolford's going to get hurt. Goff, the backup, is going to come in and play. Just weird sequences that you never would have thought that really would have taken place, I guess, if you put them all together. So that was weird. And on top of that, they score 30 points. Goff with he just had surgery a week ago, scores 30 points. I know, assisted by, they had a pick six. Darius Williams has been fantastic at jumping routes. My God. The instincts, play recognition, ridiculous. So that helped. They had towards the end that kind of sealed the deal, was a fumble on a punt there, and that kind of changed things. So the offense didn't do a whole bunch, but 30 points against an improving Seahawks defense. I think people thought the Seahawks were going to come in this game regardless of the quarterback, but keep in mind, Wolford started. Goff had to come in with the messed up thumb. And the Rams scored 30 points, so you got to give them credit there. The Seahawks defense, then that was kind of the question of the Seahawks I had, and why I wasn't really trusting them fully, is that, can the offense and defense show up at the same time? The offense has been off at times, the defense has been off at times. And the defense is much better than the offense in this game, but I don't know if really either showed up. You can't give the Rams with that quarterback situation 30 points. I know there was a pick six in there. Cam Akers ran all over them. So the defense really didn't have. They had good moments. Jaron Reed's a stud. Carlos Dunlap, I liked the way he played. So they couldn't really stop the run other than, those guys I think played well. Probably Wagner played well as well, but they couldn't really stop the run. And then there was some moments, big moments, even though not a lot of them, big moments in the pass game. Jamal Adams continued to struggle in coverage. He was targeted a lot in coverage. So that's disappointing, on his part, I suppose. So he's got to fix that part of his game. So the Seahawks defense didn't really play good, and the offense was pretty bad. So, so much for that Seahawks defense that people were hyping up. It's one of those things where it was kind of just too good to be true. You knew you had to see more, for them. But I thought their offense would pick it up. And shows how good the Rams defense. This is the best defense in football by far. It is ridiculous. They get pressure from any angle, from anywhere they get pressure, the interior edge, they can blitz. Pretty ridiculous. I mean, Jalen Ramsey, he didn't get targeted for so long in this game, so long, and he was making plays. And that kind of helps guys like Darius Williams, who's very talented, to make plays. Troy Hill can make plays. John Johnson, these safeties. It's just a really good defense. Brandon Staley might be getting a head coaching job because of it. So credit to the Rams defense. Credit to Jared Goff taking control of the ball, doing what they had to do. Well-coached game. They knew what they had to do. They knew they could win on defense in this game for the most part and get points. They needed to. Cam Akers is a stud. Cam Akers is a big-time stud. This guy can run. This guy can run. You look at, just take away the rookie production from the running back. Forget all the stats, forget all the production. In terms of running traits, Cam Akers might be your running back one. I mean, really. Edwards-Helaire, I'm confident about him with his traits. The Chiefs is kind of a pass-first type of team. So Cam Akers is, the kid can ball. The kid legit, he can ball. So they got themselves a running back there. And even Darrell Henderson's good if he's healthy. So they got themselves a group there. They were very high on Cam Akers, and you see why. And they just execute when they need to. And the Rams defense can present problems going forward because this is the best defense in football. And you think, well, it's not really a defensive era offense kind of wins these big games, and that might be true, but it's very tricky for those offenses because there's not too many good defenses. The Steelers were considered the second best defense. See how many points they gave up. Their offense sure didn't help them, but this is by far the best defense, and teams just aren't used to it. Teams, they're going to play the Packers. Have the Packers really seen anything similar to this defense yet this year? No. Maybe a similar style to the Buccaneers, but that's what makes it tough. That's just an example. You go there's just so many offensive geared teams that you just go so long without seeing a defense. Are you prepared for it? So defense can win championships because of that reason, even though it's an offensive era. So that's a sneaky thing. Seahawks, I don't even know. It's a collection of blame all the way around. A couple players played well on defense, like we mentioned, but they just couldn't stop the run, couldn't stop the pass. In big moments, I thought, not a lot of the time, but, in bigger moments. But mainly the offense. The play calling was kind of conservative. They had a tough task, though. They had a tough task. Play calling was conservative. I thought Carson was getting some decent runs, but there was a point where they had to try to get big plays. I don't know what happened to Russell Wilson the second half of the season. He did not play a good game again. He doesn't have all day to throw or anything, but so he holds the ball too long, and maybe his receivers aren't getting separation, but there's times where he should throw the ball away. He had that pick six that was, it was mainly a really good play, but it just can't happen. And Russell Wilson has not been playing good, so that's interesting to think about. Quarterback play's got to be better. Offensive line play's got to be better. Receivers got to get more separation. Play calling should be better. But they're a tough task because they kind of, in the past, they kind of were a run-first team, oddly enough, for a portion of the game. And they kind of wear the defense out. Second half, they unleash Russell Wilson. It was a good game plan, but it got predictable after a while. They kind of went away from it to start this year, and it was a ridiculous offense. The highest scoring offense in football. Russell Wilson like the MVP. But then, we all kind of overreact. It happens every year. Teams start to catch on to things, especially going from early in the year to later. And that's kind of what happened there. So teams kind of caught on, and the coaching staff's like, all right, our quarterback's not playing the best ball. Our running game isn't anything special. Our receivers can't get separation. Our offensive line's not blocking. What do we do? So it's kind of a tough task for them to be on. End of the day, it's didn't execute. Guys that you expect to execute didn't execute. That's just what it is at the end of the day. So they weren't end up, they didn't end up being as good as a lot thought they would be. The Rams defense, something special right there. Something special. So something to look out for there going forward. By far the best defense. Talking about the Steelers got a pretty good defense. The Colts got a pretty good defense. Both eliminated. Saints, Rams and Saints perhaps, Buccaneers at times, but the Rams got the best defense, and that could mean something there. The last Saturday game was Bucs in Washington football. Right off the gate, looked like the Bucs were going to dominate this game. Brady in full effect. They're moving the ball. Red zone, Washington stepping up in the red zone. Defensively, Buccaneers, I guess, failing to execute in the red zone, but it looked like what we kind of expected. Washington kind of hanging around, then fighting back, making an interesting game. Taylor Heineke played a really good game. Some of the throws he was making, not easy throws, corner of the end zone, out routes, sideline throws, on the run, making plays, speaking on the run, down the field. Played a really good game, so some promise. And people are like, this guy's got some potential. And I remember seeing him in preseason for the Vikings. Vikings would play him in preseason a lot, and he would look pretty good. So, kind of showing that in not only an NFL game, but a big time, going against Tom Brady, a playoff game. So pretty wild there. People started thinking this guy can play, but you can't make the mistake of judging off one game, and he could play. Maybe he deserves a shot, but the question, will Washington kind of roll with him next year? And I don't really think so. But we'll see. They do like him. Scott Turner likes him a lot. He was in Minnesota with him. So we'll see what happens there. Washington, it's weird because it's kind of a weird game because you thought. A lot of us were confident with the Bucs, but we did think, what if Washington, how could Washington, which is realistic, be in this game, stay in this game, maybe win this game? They could present a pass rush, win on defense. They really couldn't get after Tom Brady, though. They were in this game and had a shot, and that was without their pass rush, really. So, guys like Daron Payne from the inside, I thought he played well, made some big-time plays. So, I guess you can argue that way, but it's just kind of odd, without kind of a crazy pass rusher really dominating that much on defense, because the receivers were getting open. Brady was throwing downfield for the most part. Fournette was kind of getting going around Jones' pregame injury. I think they might have been playing safe with him. We'll see, but I think they'll need him. So that was just kind of odd. It did feel like at times that it was weird because the Buccaneers, it felt like, could throw it downfield if they wanted to, and they kind of went away from it, but then they just couldn't execute anymore. It was kind of odd. So brings up the question where they were kind of trying to save, something, some juice there, some plays, but then it got so uncomfortable, so close. So I don't know. It's kind of a question mark there. And they kind of left some plays all on the field there. Godwin was dropping the ball, some big plays too, so that was odd. Don't really expect that. So I don't expect that to be a thing going forward, but that was odd. So Brady threw the ball pretty well. They had the lead pretty much the whole game there. So they did the whole game. So I guess it's just kind of I was kind of back and forth in this game. Like early on, I'm like, okay, this is the last couple weeks Bucs team. They're rolling on offense. They did score 31 points against one of the better defenses in football here, so that's impressive. They were sloppy at times, though. Sloppy, even defense, guys were kind of getting wide open. Both the Sims were getting wide open. So it's kind of back and forth. All right, the Bucs are kind of, Brady Bucs are kind of where we thought they were being the playoffs. They're scary. They can go on a sewer run. Maybe they're kind of holding back. And now this is kind of getting close. They're getting sloppy. Godwin's dropping the ball. Kappa got hurt. Defense is, letting guys get wide open, taking some weird angles sometimes. So maybe this is, this is the only win they got in them, and then they end up scoring 30 points. It's kind of back and forth. Did they kind of hide some stuff for the Saints game next week? It's just kind of all over the place, back and forth. Washington, they got a bright future. Maybe, they're going to have to get Scherf back. Look at the quarterback position. I think they got a bright future. Maybe a corner they could add. They'll get Landon Collins back too as well, so that's big. So bright future there. They put up a fight, so you love to see that. Moving on to the Sunday games. This is kind of a surprising one here. Not really that who won. We knew that either team could win this game. Titans scored 10 points right off the bat, and it's like, and I don't decide games that early, but you had the feeling of, the Titans came to play. They might win this game, and they might do more than just win this game. And then they only score 3 points after that. it's just absolutely crazy. If you would have told me that the Titans would lose the game because of offense, I would have told you you're an idiot. Really. 13 points. 13 points for the Titans offense to score over 30 points per game. Very balanced offense. Surprising. Just shocking. And you got to give credit to the Ravens defense. They started a little slow, but then they kind of buckled down. They stopped the run. I worried about tackling for the Ravens because they were second in the NFL in most missed tackles. That's really not a good thing, obviously. But that's kind of if the ball gets past the line of scrimmage or past a certain point. And they weren't allowing that with Derrick Henry. They were they were really filling the gaps. So they were doing a heck of a job. The defensive line really showed up in this game. The edge rushers were, really involved. Guys like Judon, McPhee, they were really involved in stopping a run as well, pulling when they needed to, helping, the guys whose job is to stop the run. Derek Wolfe had a big sack at one point. Calais Campbell, you didn't really hear his name a lot, but he was doing his job. disrupting plays and, they were, as a team, they were just not, they were making sure Derrick Henry wasn't going to beat them, and that was the key piece of the game. They were stacking the box. They were run blitzing, they were blitzing the right time, and they were able to do this because their corners, Marlon Humphrey, Marcus Peters, so tight in coverage, and making big time plays, and that's why they're able to do that. So, really good team win, defensive win there for the Ravens. Going to be a different game plan, against the other teams. The Bills, if they play the Chiefs, it's a totally different game plan, but they execute this one at a very high level. Derrick Henry just couldn't do much. Yeah, the defense just won the game. Lamar Jackson kind of sealed the game with a couple plays. His touchdown, the first touchdown, was a ridiculous run. He's about to be sacked, and he's just gone, just like that. So not too many guys can do that. Maybe not anybody. So that's a big-time play. So the defense and Lamar Jackson with his legs won this game. The offense really didn't do a whole bunch. They got conservative at one point. Really, the Titans did a good job defensively. It's crazy. Really doing on Lamar. He had 2 runs that pretty much sealed the deal. One a touchdown, and one he got loose on, on a third down where it felt like the Titans were going to get one more shot. So really not too many plays. The Titans seem like they're the best defense in football against Lamar Jackson. And Lamar did enough to win the game still. So pretty weird. But yeah, that's just kind of how the game felt. The game plan for the Titans offensively looked great going in. The Ravens run a lot of man coverage. They were setting up these, crazy crossing routes. They were putting the tight end kind of split, but on the line. It was pretty cool play designs. And then they kind of just stopped working. Kind of credit to the Ravens defense for adjusting. Martindale and his players for adjusting. So that was just the difference there. They really couldn't get anything going. And I mean, the play calling got pretty predictable. They could have done a little more, but it was just more the Ravens kind of adjusting. It kind of makes me look like an idiot because I was kind of hyping up the read option for the Titans. All of a sudden they were just pulling at the end of the year. They just had this read option, out of nowhere, and it was beautiful. It was great. Teams were just like, all right, Derrick Henry's getting the ball. There goes Tannehill, wide open, every time. And it's just so confusing because you have to worry about, and it could have worked even more because teams watch it on tape. And usually when teams come up with something new, in this case, read option, and teams watch it on tape, it's, they start to figure it out. But in this case, I don't think so because teams start looking at a tape and they're like, all right, Tannehill's getting loose. He's wide open on these, so we got to watch Tannehill. But that opened things up for Derrick Henry because Tannehill just has the option to let Derrick Henry keep the ball. So I think they kind of outsmarted them. They thought too much on that. They thought, all right, we did it a few times and it worked. Teams are going to figure it out, and that was the big mistake. And I would kind of hype that up this week that they were going to pull this out and it was going to be in their back pocket and it was going to be deadly. And there were so many times where they could have ran it and they didn't run it. So I don't know if I've ever ripped a coordinator for not running a specific type of play, but here it is, but yeah, Derrick Henry didn't get it done. I know they were stacking the box. There's not too many places to run. He's not the fastest guy. Once he gets going, he's really fast, but especially for his size, but he really wasn't going, he wasn't bursting through holes. I think he did once and he got yards. There was a couple times where he could have bounced it outside and there was a lane and he just couldn't get out there quick enough. So he didn't play the best game, and it was a tough task, but he didn't play the best game, and this is kind of where it comes back to, where I talk about running back traits. And Derrick Henry he was the best running back on the year. He's a great running back, all-time great, really, and I'm a big Derrick Henry fan. But this is kind of where, when you take away production, you look at traits and why I talk about these other guys that have more traits and why it's debatable. You can definitely make the case why these guys, Dalvin Cook, Alvin Kamara, who have probably the most traits for running backs. And this is kind of an example of that. Those guys would have they would have won the game. They would have helped their team win the game. So that's kind of where that kind of comes into play. But a tough task. Ryan Tannehill in this passing game could have done more in this game. Stacking the box, you should be able to throw. He didn't have a whole bunch of times. The Ravens won in a whole bunch of time, I should say. The Ravens won in the trenches, really. I know the Titans really missed Luan. And I guess Conklin and their first-round pick, Isaiah Wilson, what a terrible pick that was. Said it at the time and saying it again. Didn't play it down this game. We'll see what the future holds for him. But, so you could say that. Tannehill could have done a little more. Receivers didn't, they weren't getting enough separation. A.J. Brown did his part. He's really their only player in offense. He did his part. He did enough. Jonnu Smith had a couple drop balls, and they were kind of contested, but still. Just in that punt, they're deciding to punt at the end, towards the end, I think was kind of costly there. Defense did their part. The defense kind of let them down all year. They did their part. They let Lamar Jackson get loose a couple times. That was the difference. But wild. The offense was the reason the Titans lost the game for their side. The Ravens did their part. Lamar did his part. Defense was great. Coaching was great, mainly on the defense side. But for the Titans, just weird. 13 points, and the offense is the reason they just couldn't do it. Just crazy. Ravens going forward, they're still hot as they were late in the year. It's great because the offense was what got hot. In the offense, we had trust in. They only scored 20 points. For some reason, the Titans match up well against them. But you still like their offense. Their offense is still very good. We know their offense. And you started to worry about their defense. Isn't it the same from like early last year, even the year before? Earlier in this year, is it the same? You start to wonder, and having a game like this boosts their stock quite a bit. So that's a good sign there for them. Next game, Bears and Saints. I mean, we're all confident about this game. It was close for a bit. It was a missed opportunity on a trick play, which was actually a really good ball by Trubisky. Maybe that's how they got to get him to throw the ball. In a weird situation, awkward situation, throwing the ball, not too easy. It was a good ball. Wims dropped the ball there, but that could have made it interesting early. But other than that, the Saints just had control of this game, and a bit of us were confident about that, but it's just the Bears offense that we know. Some people were, that's why it was confusing. Some people were kind of forgetting too easy. And all of a sudden kind of thought the Bears offense might have something, and it was the same. It was the same offense. They switched the scheme a little bit. They had more play action rollouts. That was good. But the players didn't change. They didn't change. There was no change there. So I was surprised that some people kind of thought that, it was just a matter of changing schemes, surprising some teams, and it happened to be some really bad defensive team, the worst in football. And they got going, credit to them. They got going, got in the playoffs, I suppose. But it was just a matter of playing, in game plan football against good teams here. The offense didn't change, and I don't know why. It just doesn't happen in the year. You can't forget too easy. So they got a lot of work to do on offense. Allen Robinson's a free agent. There's been times where he hasn't really got good separation. So and that's kind of the name of the game. This era. I mean, he's a very good receiver. One of the better contested catchers in football. But in a game like this where you didn't really see him a whole bunch, maybe that has to do with the quarterback play, just not being able to push the ball, make big plays. It definitely plays a part. But, you wish you could get a little more separation. That brings up the debate, how much do you pay a guy like that? And they need a quarterback. Montgomery kind of lacking the burst. That's kind of why they put Patterson in at one point when they were down. They want that big play. And, Montgomery's he's a good, strong back. But he doesn't have that home run, that burst, so that's kind of where they're lacking there. They miss Cohen, I suppose. Receivers not getting separation. You need court. So and the play calling wasn't too good, but it's kind of a tough task because you just don't have enough here, on the offense. But play calling still wasn't good. They had the bumpy road throughout the season. So I think that needs to change. I think a lot on the offense needs to change. They got a ways to go, and the defense feels like it's still a very good, very solid defense, but it feels like it's kind of declining a little bit. Defense has got to decline before they go back up. It's just not going to be the same as a couple years. So the Bears got some work to do. They're in a tricky spot here. See what they decide to do. And that kind of shows in this game that they got a lot of work to do. Even defensively, they kind of did their part for, they made plays. But there's guys that kind of like pre-snap, they kind of figure out they almost look like they don't know what to do, and they're kind of all over the place. A lot more missed tackles than I usually, I would expect from the Bears. So, just all around, not the best game for them. Saints kind of did their part. They're a little slow on offense, so early, not being able to execute, get things going downfield. So that's kind of where they were lacking. But then they kind of got going, had some explosive plays, got Kamara, Murray going, Michael Thomas going, and then they're kind of worried about running clock. So they probably could have scored more points in this game. But it was a little sloppy first half, not really sloppy, a little slow first half. A little slow first half for them, so maybe a complete game, in the bigger games. Kind of the same thing with the Bucs. The Bucs had some sloppy moments here and there against Washington. Saints started slow, so we'll see which team could show up fully in the game in round 3. Saints defense did their part, though. It's a great game, but, against this offense, you kind of expect that from a good defense like the Saints. So, not too much on this one. Not too much. Missed opportunities for the Bears, I suppose. I think there was some for the Saints as well. Yeah, somewhat low scoring like we thought. I just don't have too much for that one. I'm just curious to see what the Bears do moving forward with their coaching staff, with their players, because they got a lot of work to do still. In the last game, which was the most shocking one, 48-37. Who would have guessed that score line? That specific score line and that much scoring, I suppose. Yeah, pretty wild. The Browns, without one of their best offensive linemen, maybe their best, without their head coach. Without a couple key pieces there, and they just dominate this game when 40. There's not much to go over in this game. It's what happened right in the start. That set the tone, and you take that away, what would have happened? The Browns played harder than them. It just felt like for some reason they're more prepared. They executed better, so you could definitely say chances are they still would have won, but you cannot start a playoff game like that and kind of come back from it. I don't know if any team would kind of overcome that. So the first play of the game, Pouncey, probably the most overrated center in football, just loops it right over Big Ben's head. Steelers still should have recovered it, but they didn't. End up being a touchdown for the Browns right off the start, and they got a pick. Ends up being 4 picks on the day for Big Ben. Some tip balls. They weren't, I guess, placed at the best spot. Some that went through hands. A disastrous game. And they still scored 37. They kind of came back. The Browns were playing pretty conservative, a lot of prevent, but it's just it was just a disaster. It's a disaster. I don't really know how else to explain it. You can't start a game like that and expect to win. The Steelers are in a pretty rough situation too. Kind of talked about, kind of like the Bears. They make the playoffs. They're kind of in a rough situation going forward. The Steelers, bad cap space situation. Big Ben has a big cap hit. We'll see if they move on from him. We'll see if he moves on. Who knows? Juju Smith-Schuster is a free agent. Do they want him back? Not a lot of room to improve, and their offense, they need to. The offensive line's declining. It used to be the best in football for so long, and it's declining now. And they need more. They can't run the ball because the interior they can't run the ball. And Connor's a solid back, but they need a more well-rounded back there that brings a little more speed. And that can be an RB1. Receivers got to catch the ball. Ebron probably going to go. You got to catch the ball. Quarterback of the future is kind of a question mark. Defense will be fine. Probably get healthier, but they decline big time. You see how much they miss guys like Bud Dupree to get Devin Bush back. They missed some guys big time, but it's just you can't really. I don't know if you can expect it to get, because it played at an elite level for most of the season. I don't know if we can expect it to be even healthy next year. Well, they got to figure out what to do with Dupree too. They got to get him back long term, but you can't really expect it to be elite. So I don't know if it's ever going to be there in some time, but it should be better than where it ended this year. So a lot of questions, a lot of work to do with a little cap, and a lot of decisions to make. And the offense, it's just so one-dimensional there, so specifically one-dimensional. You just rely on the quick passing game, and teams figured that out. Teams, started the year off with well-rounded, but teams, it's just the start of the year. It's why you can't base things off the start of the year. I say that every single year. It applies to every year. Every year will show it. You can't. I think Collinsworth was talking about it. Like, they were able to run the ball. They were able to throw downfield, early in the year. And what happened? They were able to do that, but teams realize that it's not really their strength. So let's take that away from them and then just make them specifically one-dimensional. It's just not hard to figure out here. So they got work to do. They got a lot. The good thing is they have a lot of cap space in the future. They got a lot of it. Just this next year, they're in a tough spot, so we'll see what they do. Definitely a team to watch in the offseason. Very disappointing game. We knew they weren't going to make a run, just because the state of their team, what they were going on what was happening down the stretch. But yeah, we knew they weren't in a great place there, but we thought they could win this game with who was out with the Browns offensive lineman getting hurt on top of Batonio. Talk about the guys just met. Baker just met an offensive lineman in the locker room before the game. It's ridiculous that they're able to dominate still in the trenches still. It's a football team. That's a football team, well-prepared team going into the season, and each week and preparing for each game. I mean, you got to give the credit there. It's ridiculous, and the players execute. Baker's great. Kareem Hunt's one of the best running backs in football, and he's a second-string running back. It's ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. He's probably a top 5 back in football. I mean, it's insane. Top 10 at the very worst. It's absolutely ridiculous. Jarvis Landry played a good game. He broke loose for a long touchdown run. Was that the second or third touchdown? I think that was the second. Can't remember. Somewhere in there. Great route. Poor tackling attempts for the Steelers. Its defense didn't feel the same. It's just sloppy football. Tough spot to be in. It's rough. The Browns looking good. Hopefully guys get healthy across the offensive line. We've seen Conklin hobble into the locker room. Dunn goes down then, who's a backup. So hopefully those guys are good to go. Browns are a sneaky team. They will wear you out. They will play hard. They will be more prepared than you. They will play tougher football than you, and that's why they can beat. That's a team. I've been talking about it. Every step of the way, they can beat anybody because that formula, I suppose. Even they'll play the Chiefs this week. Matchup wise, it's not a good matchup for the Browns. It's not a good matchup, but they could beat them with their football, with their Browns football. And they can wear the Chiefs out and try to throw them off, not get them in their groove, and that's part of the Browns that I guess makes it interesting for the Chiefs. But you just got to love the team. You just got to respect the team. You really do. So a team that's playing really tough, and they could be dangerous going forward. Disappointing from the Steelers. It's going to be an interesting offseason. It's not a good place to be in. There's a lot of teams that played good, got to the playoffs. They're in pretty poor situations. And there's teams, and that's kind of the Steelers and the Bears. Good seasons. They made the playoffs. For the most part, good seasons. And then you got teams like the Colts in Washington who they just got stopped short. A little disappointing. Looking at the Colts kind of outgained the Bills and still lost. That's kind of a dagger, but they're in great situations. But they both need quarterbacks at the same time, which is not an easy situation, but I think they're in great situations. So that's something to look out for the offseason. We'll have you covered with the offseason. We do this video every year, which it could be later this week, actually, that we just go through every single team, look at their top 3 needs and their top free agents, excuse me. So I'm looking forward to things like that. We got you covered for the playoffs, every game, and the offseason, free agency and draft. We got you. So you're gonna want to be here. You're gonna want to subscribe, turn notifications on, smash that like button, follow us on Twitter for all those updates. Instantly talking about news and everything during games on that Twitter. So follow that Twitter. Yeah, that's gonna do it. Thanks everyone for watching. We'll be back next week with the same video for the divisional round and plenty more. That's gonna do it though. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.